Hello and welcome to Aramis Game Analysis, where we go over a professional game with an ex-professional player or coach, try and get a little bit of depth in the game that might help a young player trying to learn things, might help a young aspiring coach. And this week we're doing the MLS opener between FC Cincinnati and the Houston Dynamo with a very special guest with experience both sides of the Atlantic, Mr. Justin Hoyte. Thanks for coming on, Justin.
Anytime. How are you, mate? How's things?
I'm good. Better now you're here.
Yeah,
So,
I'm good.
do you want to just start off by telling the viewers a little bit about your career? I know it started in England and ended up in Cincinnati, which is obviously the link to this game.
Yeah, it started off with being in the academy at Arsenal from a young age, from 10 right up until 17, getting my first YTS, then signing pro, 18, playing for the Arsenal first team. Was fortunate enough to do that. Went on loan to Sunderland. Borough fan, not too keen on Sunderland, but I went there on loan for a season, which was great experience. From there, I went back to Arsenal for a few years. Some would say, unfortunately, to leave Arsenal, but I thought it was a great thing and signed 6 years. Well, say 6 years. I spent 7 years in Middlesbrough, which was your beloved club and a club that I fell in love with. Hence why I was there 6, 7 years, and I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, then I had to leave and go to Millwall, Dagenham, and Redbridge, and then after that, went on a few trials, and which was great. I had the opportunity to go over to the pond and play in America, which was always a huge dream of mine, and playing in the USL for 2 years, and finally enough, in Cincinnati in the MLS, which was great. So I guess it's a career that's gone in roundabouts, I would say.
So you said something there that I think could have some good information for young players, because you mentioned the value of a loan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for every Lionel Messi who just goes seamlessly from the academy to the first team,
Lucky,
there's probably 10, 15, 20 players who do make it to the first team world, but either end up with a delayed path of years on the bench or loans. So what did you learn? What's the bridge between youth football and men's football that you learned out on loan?
I'll say what was good for me is the fact that at Arsenal, as we say, we was top of the league, winning all the games, and I was learning my trade, learning from the experienced players, living at home, close to family, close to friends, and then having that transition where I went from having all that to going to Sunderland, living on your own, living somewhere completely different, having to do things by yourself. You learn a lot about yourself, you educate yourself, you learn how to do certain things, and it's then also on the playing side, it's like I was in and around the first team, but not always there. Then you're fully in the first team, playing Premier League games. You know, you're first seen as a first team regular, training with the first team. That all you've got to get used to. And I would say it's valuable experience knowing that and learning that, because also while I was doing that, it's like you're going from a team that's top of the league to a team that, we finished bottom of the league. And a team that was, let's say, Arsenal, we was always on the ball, always front foot, always had possession on the ball, and you're going to Sunderland where majority of the time we was defending. So I guess in that sense, I learned a lot defensively and attacking wise at Arsenal. So I learned both sides of, the highs and lows of football at such a early age, which was great, and I say helped my career as I developed. And I didn't always reach the top, and that kind of helped when there was failures in my career also.
I'd say the top is relative, Justin. I think you did all right, man. But
Yeah,
the one thing I will say is I find sometimes player development to be a bit one dimensional. And what I mean by that is everyone wants to teach people to be that Arsenal player, to be on the front foot, to send your fullbacks forward, to have possession of the ball, to press high. But if you're truly a youth coach or a college coach in America developing professionals, you should, to me, be developing a player that's competent at both ends of that scale. Not a player that's good at Arsenal, but then he goes to Sunderland, put under a bit more defensive pressure, has to play with a bit more of the ball, so he folds. So I think that's great info for young players too.
Yeah, and I think what's also interesting, what we see a lot nowadays, is you see young players, yes, they're talented and they say they're the next this, they're the next that, but sometimes they'll go on loan to a team where, say it's not like a Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal, Tottenham, whatever not. They might go to a league that's a bit lower, a bit out of their comfort zone and they don't know how to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a completely different change. It's a completely different mindset. They're asked to do different things. They're, you know, just a different environment, a completely different environment to what they've grown up to. And certain players don't know how to adapt to it. And if you don't know how to adapt to it, it's hard to really shine and show what true talent you are and what a talent you do have. Because, you know, at the end of the day, the top players have got the money to go out and buy, you know, loads of players. They don't really need to go to the academy. Yes, if you're a young player, you get that chance, but sometimes you don't get that opportunity. So then it's like, right, teams will look at you because you've had that footballing education.
Yeah.
But it's also that other side of it where you got to knuckle down and get. Um, it's hard sometimes. Trust me.
Well, I think an undervalued asset in a footballer
Mm.
is not years of failure, but years of persistence. Because
Yeah, you have
I'm
to.
a
Yeah.
Middlesbrough fan, and Chuba Akpom at one time, he's the bright young England under-21 striker who plays for Arsenal.
Yeah, of
And
course.
then
Yeah.
he went through probably a 3 to 5 year period where he feels a little bit like he's on the treadmill and wonder if he's going to make it or not. I
Yeah.
know Middlesbrough farmed him out to Greece a year ago on loan,
Mm.
and
Mm.
now this season he can't miss.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it's almost that struggle and those reps that he had to do and those years in the bank of development.
Mhm.
It's all part of what we're seeing now. He didn't just all of a sudden figure out how to be a footballer.
No, of course not, and that's also part of his development, and that's why you get to learn a lot about yourself. Is when you have these setbacks, you get touted as a young prospect or young talent. It's like when you're not reaching that, how do you react? Do you go under? Do you thrive off that and be like, no, I can come back better. I can go somewhere else, learn experience, and come back the next season full of energy, ready to show what talent I am. And Cuba Akpom is a
Yeah,
prime example of that, of what he's achieved this season. And you look at him this season, if he carries on scoring goals, I'm sure there'll be, if Middlesbrough, which we hope make it to the Premier League, I'm sure there'll be one or two Premier League clubs after him looking at how
careful,
many goals he scored that season.
careful.
Sorry. I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. We've seen it before. We've seen it before.
So anyway, on to the subject of today, which was the Cincinnati game. Obviously, we don't have a lot of context. This is the season opener. Um, as a Cincinnati fan, I know you do some other work and you've played there, so you've got a bit more Cincinnati background with me. I can tell you the team I coached, the Michigan Stars, we played their two team last week with Shavar Thomas. I was very impressed. We lost 2-1, and their movements were excellent. They were smooth. They were well drilled. They were impressive. They were some of the boys were young, but you can see there's something going on at that club of some real quality. But what are your as a Cincinnati fan, what are you thinking coming into preseason?
I feel I've had a great preseason. They've obviously ended last season on a high, getting into the playoff, securing their first victory against a good Red Bull team, and now playing season opener, having a good preseason. They've brought in one or two quality players, which is good to see. They've retained a lot of their old players from last season, which is important going into an MLS season. So I'm hopeful that they're going to perform really well this season. Will they be in the playoffs again? I think so. Will they challenge for titles? I don't think they're there just yet. But I'm excited for this season for the team. I feel they've got a lot of talent in the attacking third, and defensively, if they get things right, I'm sure they'll be there or thereabouts again this season.
And then Houston Dynamo, disappointing season last season.
Very
Ben
bad.
Olsen's coming as head coach. What were your thoughts on them coming into the game?
Houston had a lot of new players. Just looking at their background before the game, a lot of new players. Um, one or two decent players. I know they've got Arthur from Columbus Crew is a very good player. I know playing against him and seeing him for Columbus, arch rival for Cincinnati. Hiera's their main experienced player who's great on the ball. But for me, I don't know what to expect. Even going into this game, I didn't know what to expect from them, especially with so many new players, so many new faces, a new manager. Obviously, having a bad season as a Houston Dynamo team would obviously expect to make the playoffs and do really well. They didn't do that. So I guess in that respect, we didn't know what to expect going into this game.
Yeah. So just got the teams up here, just for the people listening. Cincinnati played Calentano in goal, who was a Indiana University alumni. I'm very confident. I remember him from my Dartmouth days.
Oh
And then
yeah.
a back three of Mosquera on loan from Wolves. Matt Miazga, who's a veteran we all know, played at Reading. Hogland, and a centre mid of Nuobodo and Moreno. Wing backs of Barriel and Arias. Acosta in a central sort of floating number 10 role, and then Vasquez and Santos. Houston, Clark in goal, veteran there. Bartlow and Hadibi at centre-back. Escobar right-back. Schmidt at left-back. The very impressive Herrera and Arthur behind Carrasquillo in midfield. Corey Baird, who's another MLS veteran who I like, on the right wing. Franco on the left wing, and number 9, Ferreira. So first 10 minutes of this game, what I'm seeing is Houston are very, very deliberately picking the strategy of short passes, intricate build-up, and Cincinnati with less of the ball, to me, are doing more damage. The front two, number 17 and 19, there seems to be a shorter path to goal. They seem to be a threat on the turnover. And if I was forced to bet after 10 minutes, I would have honestly bet on a Cincinnati win. One thing that happens early is we get a foul from Arthur, the holding centre mid, on Santos. And I believe some people don't realize the gravity of that, because when I coach a team, I'm going to be honest with you, my holding centre mid, number 6, gets a yellow card in the first 10 minutes. That's a little bit of anxiety. You're wondering that he's one tackle away from changing the entire complexion of the game. I'm probably already thinking if we need to be subbing him early in the second half. And I just feel like as a player, you now rein in your aggression and sort of concede a little bit of an advantage off 1v1 dribbles if you're going to go 80 minutes with a yellow card. You've obviously played at a high level. Talk to me about the psychology of a yellow card in the first 10 minutes.
That's tough. You change the way you play, especially defensively. Just because you've got that yellow card early on, that any silly little tackle, any silly little foul, anything that goes against you, you react the wrong way, you're going to get another yellow card. And especially in the MLS, you do anything wrong, you're going to get sent off. That's 100%. That. So for me, if I got an early card yellow on, luckily I didn't after a few bad tackles sometimes, but I would definitely have to change the way I play, especially defensively, which I think sometimes affects, especially holding midfield play, that definitely affects the way you play.
Yeah. And then since Cincinnati continued to cause problems, there's one cross that comes over from the left wing back that Santos misses at the back post, and then they open the scoring pretty soon after. I thought the goal was interesting systemically. And the reason I say that is, in theory, Arthur and Herrera should be able to shield that area in front of the centre-backs pretty well.
Yeah.
But from what I'm seeing for this goal, the number 17, he goes out onto the sideline. He passes backwards to the centre mid, number 5, Nuobodo. I'm sorry if I'm getting that name wrong.
Obi, we just call him Obi, but it's fine.
Yeah. 17 floats back in central, gets past the ball, I thought, pretty easily on the edge of the 18. And then he's got 2 guys there. He's got a fullback and a centre-back in front of him. And for me, it just seemed a bit too easy for him to take a touch, open the shooting lane, and put it bottom corner for 1-0. What did you think of that defending?
Yeah, and I felt that. And I felt also having that early yellow card from Arthur, I felt that also that hampered his defending in that situation. I thought he would have dealt with that situation a lot different if he wasn't on the yellow card. And I felt as a Houston defense, I just felt that they didn't handle that situation well enough. They had more than enough numbers around the ball to be able to stop the forward play, to stop Santos getting out of that situation. As soon as you see him in that situation, you should apply pressure. And I also felt that there wasn't enough cover in the central area for Houston in order to track Barrial's run. He made a blindside run as he played the ball forward. In the interception, he played it to Obi. Obi played it wide to Santos. And then you see in the freeze frame, Barrial making that run forward behind the Houston midfielder or attacker, and even behind the blind side of the referee. Made a great pass with his outside of his foot. And I just felt that Santos outmuscled his defender. And as a defender, you want to be stronger. You want to be opposing yourself on a striker. But I just felt that as a defender, he got outmuscled.
Interesting. It's interesting that you think the yellow card played a role in the goal too. Because
I thought he would have tackled him a bit harder if he probably would have gone all in if it wasn't a yellow card earlier on.
And I think a good lesson for young forwards is a lot of time I watch young players and they're in a situation like the goal here, and they will try and dribble past that defender and get their shot off. Whereas there's really no need. It's really an exercise in just moving the ball laterally, opening up the lane to shoot, and then pulling the trigger. For me, you'll get 3-4 times the amount of shots off if you develop that mindset as opposed to 1v1 dribbles.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And he got the yard that he needed. He got a nice little touch. He used his muscles, used his strength, and put it in the bottom corner. I felt the keeper was blindsided a little bit. Didn't expect the shot in his near post. I think he felt like he was going to whip it across him, which normal strikers do. But all in all, it was a great finish from Santos and something we've not seen from him in past games, but in last season when he signed. But it's great to see this side of him also, which is going to be interesting once Brenner starts coming back and he's fully fit. Who's going to start?
Good. And for the rest of the first half hour, the impression I'm got watching this, and tell me your thoughts, is Houston are trying too hard here.
Yeah, 100%.
They're trying to find the six. There was one Spears a play where Steve Clark puts the ball down, and there's 6 Houston players within 30 yards of their own goal. And I think they, like on the 10th pass, they find a player in the center circle. And it looks great when it comes off, but they turn the ball over, which A, gets Cincinnati's confidence up, B, gets the crowd into the game, and C, gets the ball at the feet of Vasquez, Acosta, Santos. It's just not what you want, right?
No, right. And I felt like Houston were playing into Cincinnati's hands. They kept playing, trying to play out from the back, but it wasn't like a playing out of a back with a purpose. It was, you're going so wide out to the centre backs. I felt like the 2 centre backs of Houston were spread too wide across the box, which played perfectly into Cincinnati's hands. The way they want to press, that was perfect. Which I felt, was bad of Houston. It was great for Cincinnati in order for them to do that. And they had a lot of turnovers in the game, Houston, especially in the first half. And Cincinnati, unfortunately, weren't able to turn these opportunities into goals. But at the same time, I still felt Houston going forward, tried too many little intricate passing, didn't really cause too much of a threat. I'd say the striker didn't really do too much to threat the defense of Cincinnati. And for the most part, I felt that Cincinnati done a decent enough job for the most part of that half, I would say.
Yeah, the game tilts a little bit. 2, incidents of note. 31st minute, Houston force a turnover of their own. It's Herrera, who was very, very impressive, one of the best players on the field, and that ends in a play where there's a shot on goal. We go to VAR to check for a handball. It ends up as no penalty. What were your thoughts on that decision?
No, this is a real gray area at the minute. It's ball to hand. Is it deliberate? Is it this? Is it that? No one ever knows. But I guess if that was given against me, I'd be fuming. So I was glad as a Cincinnati supporter and as a fellow defender that wasn't given, because I would have been fuming if that was.
So Justin Hoyte, the defender, is siding with the defender.
Yeah, of course.
But
don't get me wrong. If it was on the opposite way, I'd be shouting for a penalty. Don't get me wrong.
That's the kind of cutting edge content we need.
Don't get me wrong.
And then somewhat against the run of play, there's an equaliser. There is a ball hacked out of play for a corner. Herrera, who's been very impressive on a team that's second best, which I almost think is a feat in itself to stand out this much as an individual when your team's on the back foot. He puts a very good cross in. The left back Schmidt beats his man at the far post, and it's a pretty open header. Now, I want your thoughts on this as a defender, because I watched the replay, and when the goal goes in, Mosquera is very upset, and his arms are flying around, and he's talking to people.
Yeah,
I can't see anything other than him marking Schmidt and getting beat. So what's he upset about?
I think he's upset about that someone else should have been on the far post in that zone where the ball went. That's the only thing that I can see why he's so mad, is that someone else should have either been in that zone or that wasn't his man. So I don't know what has gone wrong. Maybe a miscommunication. I don't know if they've got the players mixed up. But with the delivery here, you need to make sure that you're spot on, because his passing range, his delivery on set pieces is borderline perfect. Like, he can put it wherever he wants, and he put it in the right place. And miscommunication, lack of concentration, whatever you want to call it, you know, it ends up in the back of the net. That can lose you games. It can draw you games. It can lose you points. So in that point, you know, we'll look back at that and wonder who should have been in that area. And as I look at it, I don't know who should have been in that area anyway.
No. So here's a question for you then.
Mhm.
It's halftime.
Yep.
I've just give you the job as Ben Olsen as the Houston coach.
Yep.
From what I can see, you're turning the ball over repeatedly in your own half.
Mhm.
Santos and Vasquez look very, very dangerous.
Mhm.
Acosta's having no trouble getting on the ball
Mhm.
beneath that base of Arthur on the yellow card and Herrera.
Mhm.
Barriel and Arias are having no problem getting on the ball, coming in as wide tens.
Mhm.
I mean, the score is 1-1, but the flow of the game, I think Cincinnati are doing everything that they want to do.
Mhm.
What would you be doing there at halftime about that?
I would, for me, I wouldn't. I would have brought in my centre backs a bit closer to play out from the back if that's what I wanted to continue to do. I probably wouldn't play out from the back every moment. I understand why you'd want to play out of the back because you put the ball in the air against Hagland, Miałowski, and the other centre back there. You're gonna lose. So I would definitely put my wide players a lot wider. Um, for Cincinnati to defend a little bit deeper and put the ball in behind Cincinnati. Because in the first half, you saw if you can get in behind the two wing backs, you got a little bit of joy. So I would really put pressure on getting the ball in behind them, stretching the field, and really trying to dominate the central areas, isolate Acosta, get Arthur and Pierre on the ball and start making some forward runs. Because I just felt that everything was to feet, to feet, to feet. Nothing was really in behind, in behind. And for Cincinnati, they like everything in front of them.
Yeah. I won't lie, coming out the second half in terms of being put under pressure, I don't think Houston put a lot of pressure on, to be honest
No,
with you. With
no.
if I'm a Houston fan, I'm definitely all right with 1-1 at
Yeah, of
this
course. Yeah,
point.
yeah,
You
especially
know,
at
like
Cincinnati. Yeah.
the game is, I think, somewhat getting away from them. I think I'm starting to feel as a fan watching that the goal's coming. What's quite impressive for Cincinnati's depth is Brenner,
Mm,
who was a star last season.
yeah.
He comes off the bench fresh in the
Hmm.
62nd minute.
Hmm.
Um, Houston make a couple of subs. Griffin Dorsey and Quinones. Fun fact, Griffin Dorsey played on an Indiana team that beat my Dartmouth team 4-0 when I coached at Dartmouth, so we don't like him. And then what I thought was the most impactful sub of the game is number 9 came out, and Ulfarsson, the former
Yeah.
Duke forward, who
Hmm.
went viral for taunting goalkeepers during his
No,
college
yeah.
years and was a first-round draft pick. He comes on,
Hmm.
and I thought we may have seen a bit of an Achilles heel now because I
Hmm.
thought the direct nature, there was more crosses. He had a
Yeah.
chance pretty much the second he came on.
Straight away. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I thought his physical, direct, intense style, I thought those Cincy centre backs were creaking a little bit with him on the field. What do you think?
Yeah, and why I also see that is because I felt like the first half, the centre backs didn't have much trouble. They was happy playing against the number 9 who didn't really cause them anything. He didn't really, as far as I see, didn't really run in behind, wasn't coming to feet to hold the ball up, wasn't really, you know, making it uncomfortable for Cincinnati at the time. There's 3 centre backs had it quite easy, I would say. But as soon as they made the substitution, that's why the game changed. The striker come on, put himself about, was running in behind, had a chance early on, and it seemed like they got a little bit of momentum from that Houston. And that's the kind of impact, you know, you want a sub to make. And after that, I feel like Houston started putting a few passes together and looked quite a decent side once they changed the striker. But for me, I always felt that Cincinnati were gonna get another goal. Houston was still trying to play out from the back, and when Cincinnati brought Brenner on, they really know how to press them front three. Once you put Brenner, Vasquez, and Acosta together, that's what they like. That's how they press. They've played that all last season. So they know, and I felt that Houston was still playing into Cincinnati's hands, and it showed in 1 or 2 chances near the end.
Yeah, and I think I've skipped over it, but on the Houston end, that's pretty much the story of their half. Cincinnati, they take a 2-1 lead
Yeah.
early in the second half through Nuobodo, and I just think personally, consistently through this second half and really the 90 minutes, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Every time Vasquez gets the ball, he looks dangerous, he looks big, strong, fast, skillful, direct. Just a very, very good player. I think he reminds me of when he was fit, the Brazilian Adriano, in terms of just constantly running at defenders. I think Acosta is constantly open, constantly between lines, pretty much unmarkable on this day, which is surprising because in theory, central midfield base of Arthur and Herrera would be very, very strong, but that wasn't the case. And the wing back Barriel, he's man of the match for me. What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, he's the man of the match. I see it a little different, having watched Cincinnati a long times. I agree with you with everything you're saying, but I feel still Vasquez in games, in majority of this game, he was missing. I felt early on, Santos was the one creating a lot of chances, putting himself about. But with Vasquez, he's that type of player that you can never count him out. You look in the first half, he didn't really get too many chances. He was quite quiet. But in the second half, he had a great chance. 1v1, he should score. Now, if you want to be a clinical striker, one of the best strikers in the world, playing the US national team all the time, they're the sort of chances that you got to get, you got to put away.
Yeah.
And that's being honest. I look at Acosta. For a lot of the game, I felt early on he was more annoyed that he wasn't getting the right pass. He wasn't getting the service he wanted. For whatever reason, things weren't 100% going his way. But at the same time, when he gets on the ball, you saw in this game and all of last season, he's so dangerous.
Yeah.
He floats around. I call him a luxury player. He gives 1-2s. He can find them passes. He's got a little bit of something that no one else has. And I feel if Cincinnati don't have him, they're lost.
Let me tell you what I see, and I don't know if I'm projecting here, but it almost feels like the team is built on purpose, where you put Vasquez out there. Yeah. You've got that strength, you've got that pace. You've now got two centre-backs who constantly are engaged with two big forwards who can run in behind.
Yeah.
And so every time Acosta kind of floats between the midfield and the centre-back, the centre-backs almost have to discard him because they're so preoccupied. The Vasquez Santos parents.
Santos, yeah. And I feel that's the same. And with Vasquez, he brings that presence as well. He brings that presence where he can put the ball in the box. He's got that presence where he can hold the ball up and he's strong, which is a great asset to have. Barriel, for sure, is 100% man of the match. Attacking wise, he was great. Putting across is what you want from a wing back. Considering he's not actual natural defender, also he's a left winger. I felt he done really well in this game. Which is great.
What really impressed me is when the 70-minute mark hit, there's a couple of players where he runs all the way back to the corner flag tackle, tracking a run. He gets himself a yellow card later on, sticking a tackle in. He really rolled his sleeves up and made an effort to grind out this game, which isn't the case with every player of that that attacking ilk,
Yeah, especially as a natural defender and someone who we've seen often wants to be a natural winger or a number 10. It's great to see him on the defensive side of it get back and do his defensive duties, which nowadays is very rare you see that, but it's great that I say Cincinnati have an asset there, and I'm sure as time goes on he'll get better defensively, as just as good as he is attacking. But for me, he's one of the bright sparks in this team.
As a Cincinnati defender, you must have been very proud watching that last.
Yeah, I was, especially seeing the victory out. Yeah, I don't know if I would have got back in my old age, but yeah.
So if you were a Cincinnati coach, what are observations where you're making ahead of the next game? What we're focusing on in training? What are we happy with? What are we not happy with from this?
The first thing is set pieces. We have to knuckle down on set pieces. Set pieces are a huge thing in the MLS. I would still say positionally, they still got played through quite easily, outnumbered in the central areas. Once Acosta vacated that area, if he wasn't, once he was attacking their transition period. And just for me, the distances between the back line and the rest of the team, I felt sometimes that wasn't right. And when that wasn't right, Houston was easily able to turn the ball over and playing behind the back line. So for me, I'm really...
Just to drill down a bit, Justin, let's say there's a youth or a high school or a college coach listening right now. Give us a little 2-3 minute masterclass from someone who's played over 100 EPL games about what you should be looking to teach when it comes to distances between your lines and what cues might be.
It's pressing cues, I would say. You saw it sometimes in the game, is where the strikers will press, and sometimes you see it in Premier League games or in World Cup games. You see the striker going full pelt, pressing, and the opposition season just pass straight past him into their number 6, and he's turning around and looking at everyone else, and they're already on the halfway line or in, you know, just above their edge of their box, and he's looking as if to say like, why are they so deep? So for me, it's like, right, pressing. If he's the cue to press, everyone needs to go and press at the same time. Because if you don't press at the same time, you easily get broken down.
Yeah. Good.
It's them
Good
pressing
people.
cues really, and then the midfield need to go up, the backline need to go up. But I always say the backline need to, or someone in the backline needs to be the person who tells the midfield to press. The midfield needs to tell the strikers when to press. So I feel you all need to have someone in each, say, line of uh, formation who's barking out the orders, who's telling them to press, who's telling them to sit, who's telling them to hold, who's telling them to press, and that's normally a central midfielder or a defender.
Yeah. So projections going forward. Cincinnati look like an MLS playoff team to me, from my experience. Look like they might win a couple of games. Yeah. I don't know that they will hold up against the likes of the Philly Union with that back line from what I saw. Mm-hmm. And Houston, I think Herrera will be one of the best players in the entire league. But I think beyond that, there's some nice players, but I don't see a playoff team there. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Houston got individuals that have got good individual qualities, whether they can put it together, I'm not sure. Herrera, yes, he's going to be the main player and probably the star player for them. I actually feel that they're going to miss out on the playoffs. I don't think they'll do too well this season, just because I see the West being very strong. The Western Conference being very strong this season. I don't think they're going to be in the playoff contentions just from looking at the first game. Yes, it's early doors, but I still see that. Cincinnati have got a good start to the season. First game. It's going to be a tough game now going away to Orlando. And then they've got Seattle at home after that. So these are the next 2 big games. Seattle was a great team, great organization.
You'll find out pretty quick where you stand.
Where they stand, yeah. As I say, in the MLS, you don't have to start off great. As long as the second part of the season you can push on. But you want to win as many games as you can. So I see Cincinnati making the playoffs, yes. But it's still going to be a tough one. There's a lot of teams last season who didn't make the playoffs that will be a lot stronger this season. But I feel they can grind out a few results this season for sure, like they did last season to get into the playoffs.